Philosophical harm is a more abstract concept compared to physical or psychological harm. It generally refers to harm that affects a person's values, beliefs, autonomy, or sense of meaning rather than their body or mind in a direct, measurable way. It's often discussed in ethics and philosophy when considering things like dignity, rights, and identity. Examples include violation of autonomy, forcing someone to act against their deeply held principles, loss of dignity, treating someone as an object rather than a person, existential harm, undermining someone's sense of purpose or meaning in life, posthumous harm, disrespecting a person's wishes after death, for example, misusing their body or legacy. Here are some key approaches. 1. Violation of autonomy. Many philosophers, for example, Kantian ethics, argue that treating someone as a mere means rather than an end in themselves is a harm, even if they never feel it. Example, deceiving someone into making a choice they wouldn't otherwise make. 2. Damage to narrative identity. Philosophers like Maya Schechtman and others suggest that our lives have a narrative structure. Actions that disrupt or distort this narrative, for example, erasing someone's legacy after death, constitute harm. This is often invoked in debates about posthumous harm. 3. Loss of dignity or moral status. Being humiliated, objectified, or treated without respect for one's personhood is considered a harm, even if no physical or psychological pain occurs. Example, publicly degrading someone. 4. Existential or meaning-based harm. Undermining someone's sense of meaning or purpose in life, such as destroying their deeply held values, can be considered harm. Example, forcing someone to act against their core moral beliefs. 5. Rights-based harm. Violating someone's rights, even if they never know about it, is often considered a harm in deontological and legal philosophical frameworks. Harm is also often seen as something that is contrary to or diminishes well-being. Here's how philosophers frame this idea. 1. Well-being as the benchmark. Many theories, utilitarianism, consequentialism, treat harm as any state that lowers a person's well-being compared to how they would have been otherwise. Well-being can mean hedonistic, pleasure versus pain, desire-based, satisfaction of preferences, objective list, goods like knowledge, friendship, autonomy. 2. Counterfactual component. Harm is often understood comparatively. You are harmed if you are worse off than you would have been in some relevant alternative scenario. Example, if someone steals your inheritance, you're harmed because your well-being is lower than it would have been. 3. Challenges non-experiential harms. What about harms you never feel, for example, betrayal you never discover, posthumous harms? Can you be harmed after death if your well-being no longer exists? These cases push philosophers to ask, is harm purely about well-being, or does it also involve violations of rights, dignity, or narrative identity? Non-experiential harms are harms that occur even though the person never feels them, never knows about them, and they don't affect their conscious experience. In other words, the harm exists independently of subjective awareness. Key features: they do not require pain, suffering, or awareness. They are often defined in terms of objective interests being set back. Examples: betrayal. You never discover if your partner cheats on you, but you never find out. Some argue, you've still been harmed because your interest in fidelity was violated. Privacy violations. If someone secretly reads your diary, but you never know, your privacy interest was harmed. Posthumous harms. If your body or reputation is mistreated after death, many philosophers argue this is a harm, even though you can't experience it. Deception without consequences. If you're lied to but the lie never affects your decisions or feelings, some still consider it a harm because it undermines autonomy. Why it's philosophically important. Challenges. The idea that harm equals suffering or reduced well-being suggests harm can be normative, violating rights, autonomy, dignity, rather than experiential. Raises questions. Can harm exist without a subject to experience it? Is harm about interests, status, or experience? Can harm exist without a subject to experience it? Experiential view. Harm requires a conscious subject who suffers. If no one feels pain or distress, there is no harm. Supported by hedonistic theories of well-being. Problem. How do we explain betrayal you never know about or posthumous harm? Interest-based view. Harm occurs when someone's interests are set back, even if they never experience it. Example, you have an interest in your reputation. If it's destroyed after death, that interest is frustrated. This allows harm without awareness or even without existence, posthumous harm. Status-based view. Harm is about violating moral status or dignity, not about experience. Example, treating someone as a mere means is harmful because it disrespects their personhood, even if they never know. Narrative view. Harm can occur when the integrity of your life story is disrupted, for example, erasing your legacy, even if you're gone. As SN, there is some coherent understanding by philosophers arguing harm can exist without experience, because it's tied to interests, rights, or status, not just feelings. Is harm about interests, status, or experience? Interests, common in welfare-based theories. Harm equals setback to your objective or subjective interests. Status, central in deontological ethics. Harm equals violation of dignity, autonomy, or moral standing. Experience, core to hedonistic views. Harm equals pain, suffering, or negative mental states. Tension. If harm equals experience, then betrayal you never know about isn't harm. If harm equals interests or status, then harm can occur without awareness, even after death. Bottom line. Philosophers disagree, because harm can mean experiential pain, suffering, interest-based, frustrated goods, status-based, violated dignity, or narrative-based, disrupted life story. What is an interest? Is central to interest-based theories of harm and well-being, and philosophers disagree on what counts as an interest. Here are the main views. 1. Desire-based accounts definition. An interest is something you want or desire. Harm. Frustrating a desire harms you. Example. If you desire to finish a novel and someone destroys it, you're harmed. Criticism. What about trivial or uninformed desires? For example, wanting to eat unhealthy food. 2. Objective goods accounts definition. Interests are things that are objectively good for you, whether you want them or not. Examples: health, knowledge, friendship. Harm. Losing these goods harms you, even if you don't care about them. Criticism. Can something be good for you if you don't value it? 3. Just Desert's normative status definition. Interests are tied to what you deserve as a person with moral status. Example. You have an interest in being treated with dignity, regardless of your desires. Harm. Violating your rights or dignity harms you, even if you never know. Criticism. This makes harm very abstract. Does it still matter if it never affects your life? Why this matters: if interests equals desires, harm is experiential and subjective. If interests equals objective goods, harm can be non-experimental. If interests equals moral status, harm can occur even after death. Prudential interests, or prudential desires, are a key refinement in this debate. Let's break it down. What are prudential interests? Definition. Prudential interests are things that make your life go better for you, not just morally or aesthetically, but in terms of your own well-being. They are contrasted with moral interests, what's right or wrong, instrumental interests, means to other ends. Prudential interests are about what is good for you, regardless of whether you currently want it. Prudential desires versus mere desires. Mere desires. Any want you have, for example, craving junk food. Prudential desires. Desires that, when satisfied, genuinely improve your life. Example. Desire for health, meaningful relationships, knowledge. Why the distinction matters. Not all desires are good for you. Prudential desires filter out trivial or harmful wants. Prudential interests versus objective goods. Some philosophers argue prudential interests equals objective goods, health, autonomy, friendship. Others say they are subjective but informed, what you would want if fully rational and informed. Implications for harm. If harm equals setback to prudential interests, you can be harmed even if you don't feel it. Non-experimental harm. Example. Losing a friendship. You didn't know you had still harms you because friendship is prudentially good. This is where the discussion gets really rich because it ties harm theory to prudential interests, valence states, and moral salience. Let's unpack each and connect them. 1. Interests and prudential goods. Prudential interests. Things that make your life go better for you. Health, autonomy, friendship. These are often considered objective goods or informed desires. Harm, on this view, is a setback to prudential interests, not just any desire. Why this matters? It filters out trivial wants and focuses on what genuinely contributes to well-being. 2. Valence states. Valence refers to the positive or negative felt quality of an experience, pleasure versus pain, satisfaction versus frustration. Hedonistic theories tie harm directly to negative valence states, pain, suffering. But interest-based theories allow harm without negative valence, for example, betrayal you never feel. Tension. If harm is about valence, non-experimental harms seem impossible. If harm is about interests, valence is secondary. 3. Moral salience. Moral salience equals what makes something ethically significant. For harm. If harm is experiential, moral salience comes from suffering. If harm is interest-based, moral salience comes from rights, autonomy, or dignity. If harm is status-based, moral salience comes from respecting personhood. This matters because it determines why we care about harm. Is it because it hurts valence, or because it violates something normatively important, status, interests? Putting it together. Experiential view. Harm equals negative valence, morally salient because suffering matters. Interest-based view. Harm equals setback to prudential interests, morally salient because well-being matters. Status-based view. Harm equals violation of dignity, autonomy, morally salient because personhood matters. Summary of the discussion. What is harm? Traditionally, harm is seen as something antithetical to well-being. It makes your life worse. Philosophers debate whether harm requires experience pain, suffering, or can exist without it. Experiential versus non-experimental harm. Experiential harm requires negative valence states, pain, distress. Non-experimental harm occurs even if you never feel it, for example, betrayal you never know about, posthumous harm, privacy violations. What is an interest? Desire-based. Harm equals frustrated desires. Objective goods. Harm equals loss of things objectively good for you, health, friendship. Prudential interests. Things that make your life go better for you, filter desires or objective goods. Status-based. Harm equals violation of dignity or autonomy. Valence states positive negative experiential quality, pleasure versus pain. Hedonistic theories tie harm to negative valence. Interest-based theories allow harm without valence. Moral salience, why harm matters ethically. Experiential view, because suffering matters. Interest-based view, because well-being matters. Status-based view, because personhood and dignity matter. Implications of competing views of harm, how we define harm, whether as experiential suffering, setbacks to prudential interests, or violations of moral status, shapes the entire landscape of moral theory and practical ethics. Policy and law. If harm requires experience, privacy breaches or posthumous wrongs may seem morally trivial. If harm includes interest-based or status-based setbacks, these become ethically weighty. Bioethics and end-of-life decisions. Interest-based accounts justify respecting advanced directives and posthumous wishes, even when the person no longer exists to suffer. Moral salience. Experiential views tie moral urgency to valence states, pain, distress, while interest status views grounded in autonomy, dignity, and narrative integrity. Normative scope. Expanding harm beyond experience broadens moral responsibility. Our actions can wrong others even when they never know, and even after death. Bottom line. The concept of harm is not just descriptive. It determines what counts as a moral wrong, what duties we have, and how far our obligations extend beyond felt suffering.